Biz Daily Newspaper. Today, April 23rd, 2026, my guest is Dr. Abdullahi Jalam, an environmental manager and a lecturer with the Department of Environmental Management Technology at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, Nigeria. Welcome to Malam and Biz Daily Newspaper, Doctor.
Glad to be with you, Malam MB. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I am Mubarak Bello, familiarly known as Malam MB, the publisher of Malam MB's daily newspaper. Dr. Jalam, on Thursday, April 16th, 2026, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency warned of a high risk of flooding across the 34 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Is the warning timely, or what do you think?
Yes, the warning is timely and is prompt. It equally shows the readiness in which Nigeria is becoming is increasing day in, day out, because there is a paradigm shift in which the global community looks at disaster, and Nigeria is equally keen into that regard. It's better for you to be proactive than reactive. So Nigeria in this regard is actually being proactive, is passing the early warning systems accordingly, and calling on the attention of all tiers of government to be proactive equally in saving their communities, as well as performing their core duty of governance, that's protecting lives and property.
Well, the agency still urged Nigeria, or rather the Nigerian government, of national preparedness. So what would you say with regard to that? Because considering our governors, and a lot of people see them as people who are very fond of being bulls in a china shop with regard to what happened with regard to the collapse of the Alau Dam in 2024 in Borno State. So do you think our governors will take this warning seriously?
Yes, I think they will take it seriously, because they have seen the consequences of inaction in what happens in the case of Alu Dam in Maiduguri. So the federal government, through two of its prominent agencies, that's NIMET, which conducts the technical component of the early warning signs and response, has communicated effectively through the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, whereby they make a pronouncement to the Minister of Water Resources that these 33 states are quite vulnerable. They are at high risk. About not just the 36 states seeing them as a lump sum, but about 14,118 communities are at this high danger. And if you talk about the communities that will be affected entirely, there are more than 30,000 communities. So this is not just an ordinary case of disasters. This is a catastrophe, an impending catastrophe facing Nigeria. There is no sane person that will not be concerned, and there is no discerning mind that will not take action accordingly, despite the fact that our governors are somehow docile or inactive, that they only tend to cater for what seems to please them. But this is an electioneering year. I believe whether they like it or not, they must do the right thing accordingly.
Well, the heat today is becoming unbearable. How will you convince people that climate change is real? Because if people were very much concerned about the environment, our governors, our leaders would not be taking the situation lightly. What will you say?
Yes, I think the issue of climate change has been resolved. Though, despite the fact that even at the global scenes, we have leaders that are climate skeptics, but that does not negate the fact that climate change is real. There has been debate championed by the UNFCCC, that's the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This debate has lingered for nearly 2 decades, and it revolves around 14 key areas, which talks about the rising sea levels, the melting of the ice at the polar region, and so on and so forth. And all point to the fact that scientifically it has been proven that climate change is a reality. So there is no, the moment for us to be debating about climate change, whether it's a myth or a reality, is long overdue. It's now a moment for us to take action. Even the recent flooding that the government, the federal government is alerting and informing Nigerians about, is all about as a result of our climate change. There are three causes of these issues. The first is the change in climate. Secondly, they are all attributed to climate change. The rise in the sea levels from the shore in the along the coastlines, and also the impact of the climate change that is being perceived at the inward, that's the Sahel region, the savannah area of the Nigerian state. So definitely we are not lingering behind debating about climate change. No, it's what action we need to take in order to douse everyone is to douse the impact of climate change. Everyone is feeling it directly or indirectly. You are living witness to the fact that years ago the level of or the coolness that we're feeling within the months of January, December to February is no longer there. Whenever 30 years ago, when you're going to Jos, they will tell you around this month, they will tell you that take care of yourself. You know you're going to Jos. But today, the case is no longer there.
What is happening? Will you say climate variation, or what do they call?
That's actually the climate change. There is a difference between the climate variability and the core climate change that we discussed.
Explain it to the people, please.
Climate change happens as a result of a global phenomenon, but within a biome, a larger geoecological zone. But the climate variability can happen within just smaller ecosystems, whereby there is an alteration in how the weather of that environment is being perceived. So they are entirely driven. They share certain things in common, but they are actually different in the context of environmental science.
But what do you mean by alteration? Can you explain further?
Yes, the alteration might be as a result that at times the rainfall that you receive annually might be even higher than the rainfall that you used to receive 30 years ago. But in such a scenario, instead of you receiving it within 6 months, you are now receiving it within 3 months. There is immense torrential rainfall. What we mean by torrential rainfall is that there is high amount of downpour within a shortest period of time. Within an hour, there will be a rainfall that you normally receive for a week, which will overstretch the facilities. Your drainage systems will be overstretched, and this is the most common scenario that we are experiencing in Nigeria. There is immense downpour. The amount of rainfall, if you use any instrument to gauge the rainfall, that you realize that the amount of rainfall is so severe, so immense, that we normally receive it within 2-3 weeks, but we are now receiving it within 1 day or a fraction of a day. So that downpour normally cause what we call a flash flood. Is a flooding that the systems they cannot accommodate the water within the time span that it has fallen. So definitely it has to flow, it has to overstretch the facilities, so and cause a widespread flooding. And this aspect is a variability. We don't normally variability is an alteration that you don't normally see that before. So there is a change in the variation in how you normally experience rainfall. So that's what we mean by variability.
Okay. Yeah. So with regard to this warning of the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, with regard to their warning, so what do you think is the way forward? What is the solution? What should the Nigerian governors do with regard to that? And how should the citizens of the country should how can they afford to hold leaders accountable? Because we don't want the repeat of the Alau Dam in the collapse of the Alau Dam in 2024. So what is your thought on this?
I think at this point I have to disappoint Nigerians, because when you say your question seems to be a little bit skewed, because you're thinking that the governors are just the ones responsible for the actions or the inactions in this regard.
But they are the leaders.
They are, but actually, even if they are leaders, you cannot take all the blames. There are certain responsibilities. I cannot take all the blames of your family, your household. The governor of Bauchi, for example, cannot be responsible for the illness of your child, except in a larger scale whereby your child has been exposed to a pandemic or something, which is the responsibility of the state to tackle that. But a common fever or something, you cannot just blame the government for that. And this is exactly what is happening. The case of this,
if there is no good healthcare system, I should blame the governor. Yes, for that.
In this case is that we are not just saying that the whole burden of this flooding lies on the shoulders of the governors. There are three causative factors in this scenario. The first is that there is the inability of the government to respond appropriately to the challenges facing Nigerians. But that does not negate the fact that the governors are doing their best. Let me cite two scenarios for you. The first scenario is that this flooding scenario that was reported, the flood alert, was reported based on climatic and other natural factors that have been exacerbated by humans, not state governors. Humans, the societies and communities, are responsible for the improper dumping of refuse at the drains, improper constructions of buildings at the waterways. Look at what happened last year in Mocha in Niger State. People inhabited the pathway of the water. And whenever you block the waterway.
But I would like to interrupt you here, Doctor,
yes,
because excuse me. I mean, there is a State Urban Development Board. They are responsible for making sure that people don't build on waterways. Yes. What will you say with this? Can't we call this a failure of governance?
This is what I'm saying. We cannot completely say the failure of governance, because we are in a democratic scenario. I'm telling you, any governor that takes that enforces the law accordingly will be kicked out by the populace. This is, our people are very good in responding to good leaders in that regard. So you have to look at it as a two side of a coin. You don't just throw the blame to the government. The people are equally responsible, a factor. In the case where we can blame the government are cases whereby the government has to do its part, like in the case of release of water, in the case of the flooding in 2012, whereby water was released from Lagbo Dam, and it has been the responsibility of the Nigerian government to construct the Hausa dams across the law to absorb the shocks, whatever water comes in from Lagdo Dam from Cameroon. So in this part, and up till now, these Hausa dams were not constructed to absorb this excess water. So in this regard, you can completely blame the government. But with regards to current flooding arrangement, we are part and parcel of contributors to this. So we have to change the way in which we think about flooding. It's not a governor that will desilt. There are certain communities that the government is not aware of them. Look at the case of this insurgency, that we have many ungovernable spaces in Nigeria. The government does not cover that area. When you are in such communities, you won't see the presence of government in any way, in any form. There is no school, no hospitals, and these people expect that the government has to come in and tell them that this drainage, throwing a refuge on the waterways or constructing homes along water paths is the responsibility of government.
But doctor, there should be environmental education.
Yes.
It should be inserted into our curriculum.
It's not just into our curriculum. Like this, how we can better respond to this scenario. I was expecting that the very moment that the NISA gave this warning, I was expecting all you people, especially the journalists, I was expecting these television stations and print media and our radio stations to commit at least 30 minutes a day in calling on sensitizing Nigerians on how to avoid this. These numbers that we have been told by these agencies are not just statistics, they are lives and livelihood. They are the basic support systems, and we're not talking about an ordinary disaster. Something that has to cover 33 states, including the federal capital, with the exception of only Katsina, Bayelsa, and Akwa Ibom. All other states in Nigeria are affected. It's a catastrophe. This is not an ordinary disaster. So each media house is supposed to commit at least 30 minutes a day in calling on the attention of everybody, religious leaders, that's the spiritual leaders, community leaders, traditional leaders, civil society organizations, and the government to do the needful before it's too late. So you equally has a task to do. You have to dedicate certain portion of your time in creating the needed awareness for us to collectively respond to this threat so that we can...
So now, currently, what should the government do in order to avert the future flooding?
Part of the proactive measures is that we have to desilt our drainage systems. The state, the SEPAs, that's the state, the state environmental protection agencies have to desilt all the drainage systems, and we have to make sure that all communities that are on all houses or buildings, structures that were put on waterways are being cleared so as to have to create a passage for the water. That's from the side of the government. And equally, the SEPAs, that's the state emergency management agencies, have to come in and take precautionary measures toward relocating certain communities, the vulnerable communities, to safer locations. And on the part of the people, they should stop dumping waste garbage into the streams or into waterways. So we all have a role to play. Everyone has a stake in this, in making the community a better and a healthier society. So we have to do our part, not just emphasizing that the government cannot do it 100%. So we have to play our part.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Abdullahi Jalam, an environmental manager and a lecturer with the Department of Environmental Management Technology at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Nice to be with you, Malam MB. Looking forward to see you next time.